did not think that we would get the type of content like this in late June with another team's fan base to their biggest rival, Texas A&M in Texas. Jim Schlossnagle coming out and apologizing to a reporter, mainly due to the fact that he sees Olin Buchanan, who's been on this show before, but sees Olin Buchanan in the middle of his press conference from Texas. Oh, and by the way, the A&M roster is completely damaged here today. However, we got to talk about it from an LSU angle too, even though we'll kind of talk about Schlossnagle and Texas A&M in the middle of all that. Does the Portal King lurk? You know, it's funny because last night, I used to do this in my very early days. Like, I would send out cryptic tweets, and people hated me for it. But I didn't have any, like, a paid form that I can run to, didn't want to go to anybody else's, and I'd give out subtle hints. That's how this show was built. And then yesterday, I used a pretty funny Cat Williams meme of saying Jay Johnson is about to attack Texas A&M's roster, and nevertheless, we're here. You know, if you watch The Sopranos, the great clip with Bobby and Tony Soprano of, Notre Dame's predict all of this. I mean, it's not that difficult. If you got friends, and we have friends here on this show, you included, we got to talk about LSU baseball portal here tonight. We will. Who are some guys that they are after? We'll touch on all of that. I did notice this. How about on 3 getting into college baseball transfer portal news? Buddy, okay. In a weird way, like I told you last night, in a weird way, I think that this is helping grow college baseball. What do I know? What I do know is that I'll definitely have my eyes glued in on Texas and Texas A&M next year in football, or this year in football. We are here. We got to talk about football too. 247 Sports came out with a blue chip ratio and the top 10 teams in the blue chip ratio. And if you don't know what blue chip ratio is, it's just the highly recruited guys who has a number of percentage of them. Like Ohio State has 90% blue chip rate, means they have a lot of really good players. LSU came in 8th in this top 10 list. I'm going to tell you why none of that matters. 0% of it matters. Or 100% of it can matter. Is the theory that blue chip ratio is overrated? By the way, you were 4th last year. You were 4th in blue chip ratio. How did that play out for you? Not too well. So I will just remind you, we'll talk about that blue chip ratio in football. I might throw in some nuggets about football that I heard today that are very interesting. You know, I like me a good summer update, especially at the position group that I'm hearing that it's coming from. And boy, can I not wait to talk about them next week. Nevertheless, let's get to a couple comments before we get rolling. Andrew Paul's Hub Martin says, he says, that he quotes this for people on podcasts. Quote, Quasimodo predicted all this. God, The Sopranos, dude, had so many great one-liners. In a lot of ways, if you really if you don't look at it from a serious lens and just look at it from a normal lens, there is so much humor in it. So much goddamn humor in The Sopranos. Stephen Fry says, give me the Portal King or give me death. Well, I don't think you're going to die, my good friend. You're not going to die. I promise you. Stephen Young says, saw a couple of A&M accounts on Twitter reporting that Laviolette to LSU about an hour ago. Is there smoke there? We will talk about that. What I would tell you is look, the guy that is reporting Chase Laviolette to LSU or crystal balling or picking, he has no idea. He is a guy that covers college baseball that has a deep Texas A&M backing with him. And he has always talked negative in reference to LSU. I can confirm if it's worth anything, I can confirm that the story that young man put out about Jay Johnson entertaining Texas in the middle of the season is not true. It's not true. Not in the middle of the season. Not when this team was 2-13. It's not. It's guys are 2-13. Excuse me. It's not true. You can believe me. You don't have to, but I will rely on the 5 or 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. Almost going into 24. Almost a decade's worth of doing this, building this from the ground up. I'm telling you. Did not happen. And he will never know. He will never know. So we'll talk about him, or we'll talk about those players tonight. Lance says, how do it do? Blake, good to see you in here, Lance. We greatly appreciate it. Charlie Viator says, spill it, Blake. What do I need to spill? I don't need to spill anything. I put some predictions and some thoughts and opinions on our message board. AYSSnetwork.com/forum. Could have had this 5 hours ago. And I'm not going to go into more detail than I went in there on the article that we did on the A&M players that I think LSU is going to target. I left one out on purpose, and we'll see if anybody catches it. And I told you at the end that I kind of, in so many words, left off one. So we'll see. Jamal says, if we got the outfielder from A&M, Chase Laviolette, do you guys think we lose Larson or Brown? No. One of them won't be able to play. No, I don't. I think that comes into a little bit of play here. Now, here's the thing. I think that you tell any one of those kids, like, look, man, you're adding 29 home runs into your lineup, and I'm not trying to be rude. I get the thought, and look, Chase Laviolette was committed here at one time. Nolan Cain, pulmonary leave for whatever reason. He goes to A&M with Nolan Cain. 29 home runs added to your lineup, and that kid that can play center field, he can, and play one of the edge outfield positions. Guys, I don't mean this in the wrong way. He's going to be probably and likely the number 1 overall pick next year. There's a high probability that he is. At worst, he's a top 3 pick next year going into the draft. I don't mean this in the wrong way, but if a Dylan Cruz or Paul Skeens is out there, you go get him. And I will tell you my thoughts on that. Now, should you go try to get him? Do I think that Jay Johnson will always recruit? Yes. The thing that we need to discuss is, number 1, how likely is that? And number 2, is it something that's going to happen? I think that there's a lot of things in play with that recruitment. We'll touch every single one of them. Reed Stewart on Twitter says, how many returning players do you think will start on day 1? A lot of transfers going to fill and clear holes, hopefully. I don't know, Reed. I think that's a really good question. Let's say hypothetically Larson and Brown are on the corners, and you got a left field, right field, so that's 2. I think Braswell returns at short. That's 3. I think obviously Milan returns at second. That's 4. I mean, Griffin Herring, that's 5. And I'm being generous. And look, I don't know what's going to happen with Bear Jones. I don't think he is coming back. And I told you that my opinion is I pray to God that he's coming back. I just don't think that he will. However, is there like we talked about last week, a 50-50 shot that he could come back. Yes, I do think that there's a 50-50 chance that he could. At max 4 or a minimum 4, at max 7. Yeah, at max 7. And look, guys like Paxton Kling, guys like Brady Neal, I think that those guys are actually, ironically, going to stay in the SEC. I wouldn't be shocked if Paxton Kling, I just would not be shocked if Paxton Kling went to South Carolina. I don't know if he is. I have no knowledge of the situation, zero knowledge of the situation. I have not talked to Paxton. I have not talked to his family. I just, as The Rock would say, if you smell, I can smell it in the air tonight, like my name is Phil Collins. Okay? When your boy's got a feeling, it's either one of two things. It's either indigestion or my gut is telling me, Blake, go with the take that you need to go with. Hopefully, it's not always indigestion. You know what I mean? Anyway. All right. Let's get rolling. Everybody do us a favor. Hit the like and share. Share all those groups. If you're on Facebook, share all of your social media pages. By the way, I have been convinced, and will continue to do it, we will be more active on Instagram. We have not been active on Instagram. Go over to AYS_sports. Follow us there. Go to the gram. I think I'm going to try to find a very unique way to give extra content that I don't publish everywhere on Instagram. I actually think that I might post something tomorrow that will throw some things out there. We'll figure something out, but you're going to want to be following on Instagram tomorrow. As I was dumb, I didn't. Every time I get on Instagram, man, it's some big boob woman. I don't want to see all that when I got 2 kids here, and I would much rather see it in person. Hawk Tua. All right. Okay. If you're on YouTube, hit subscribe, notification bell wherever you listen to podcasts, rate, review, and subscribe. Let's talk about our good friends over at BetOnline. Good friend Tyler Alexander over at LPT Realty, and our good friends over at J&J Exterminating. Don't go anywhere. Stay with us. Lots to talk about next. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way for you to wager on all of your favorite sports, contests, events, with the first-to-market odds and lines. Find reviews for all the news for each league, including Major League Baseball, NFL, NBA, NHL, combat sports, college sports, esports, and even golf. BetOnline continues to be the top online resource for all of your sports information for live in-game betting, props, and futures. Head on over to BetOnline today and use your mobile device to join and make your first sports bet. Use our promo code BELIEVE50, that's BELIEVE50, BLEAV 50, to receive your 50% off welcome bonus on your first deposit. That's betonline.ag, betonline.ag.
He will sell your house and find you a new. Well, Tyler's the man, he's here for you. If you want to buy or sell, well, it's not too late. Dial 955-0008. Just call 955-0008. Y'all call Tyler, he'll shoot you straight.
Louisiana is unique. The food, the festivals, even the bugs. No, not mud bugs. Unwanted bugs like these. The ones you don't want crawling in your home or business. Trust the Shield from J&J Exterminating. We've been protecting Louisiana homes for over 50 years, earning the trust of our clients because we deliver what we promise. Protect your home from pests. Get the Shield from J&J Exterminating.
J&J Exterminating. Yeah. We're back.
You know what's funny? I'm I'm starting to feel so much better about Griffin Herring. Did give up a run today and his outing in summer ball. If you were going to go in the draft, would you be risking injury to play summer ball? I mean, I'm just asking. Just legitimately asking. 2 innings pitched, 2 hits, 3 Ks, 2 walks, though, for Griffin Herring. If the kid comes back, Jay says he's going to try to make him a starter. I do not blame Jay if he does. Speaking of baseball, look, I want to start off with a little bit of a rant, but I'm going to lead it into LSU baseball recruiting. Stay with me. I think that sports – how do I want to say this? I think that collegiate sports in general has a very big issue. Blake, we know that it does. We got NIL. We have the portal. We have, potential revenue sharing. So many different things. Realignment. So many things that are wrong in college athletics. But I got to admit something. Yesterday with Jim Schlossnagle going into it today has got to be one of the worst things to happen to any program. Disgusting, if you will. And what's funny to me, see, the NCAA is trying to reduce the portal from 45 days to 30 days. Meanwhile, when they're trying to get that legislation passed, you have a coach in Jim Schlossnagle that has already accepted a deal. Let's be real with everybody here. Jim Schlossnagle, everything that is already out there, guys, there's got to be, not got to be, you have very reliable people reporting that there were some really shady shit that he was doing when they were in Omaha in the College World Series, accepting a job before the regional, a lot of crazy stuff. But you know what's crazy in all this? Not only did Jim Schlossnagle take his entire staff, go to an arch rival of a team, which is all legal. There's nothing the NCAA can do. Nothing that they can do. I question, and I think that there will always be a question if Jim Schlossnagle didn't throw a game, regardless if he believes and says today in his press conference, I wanted to win a national championship. Okay, cool. Whatever. I don't know if I can fully trust you and believe you after the shady shit that you just pulled. But meanwhile, as just an entity of college athletics. Guys, we talk about baseball on this show. We talk about football a lot on this show, clearly. We talk about basketball on this show. We talk about life events that's going on everywhere. But every time that we talk about the changes that are happening in college athletics, we point it to the kids, right? We point it to NIL portal issue. Meanwhile, you have a coach doing what he did in Jim Schlossnagle to Texas A&M. Guys, that's shittier than anything that goes on in the portal, anything that goes on with NIL. Because quite honestly, man, at least people are getting paid, and at least it's helping people. What Schlossnagle did, which there's no ramifications of him doing this, is that he could have set Texas A&M baseball, even though he brought it up, in one fell swoop, he could legitimately have just torn it down. Now, I am not an A&M apologist. Last week, I was telling you how Rudy Poo all of them were. This could have been any institution. Any institution. And you know what, LSU fans? This should legitimately hit home with you. Because for well over 2 decades, Nick Saban not being in Baton Rouge stung. It hurt. It didn't feel good that Nick Saban wasn't here. It didn't feel good when he said, I'm never going to the NFL, and he bolts. It hurts when he says, I'm never going back to the SEC in college football, and the next day he goes to Alabama. And not only that, he is announced at a basketball game when Alabama is taking on LSU in Tuscaloosa. None of that helps. You have somewhat, in your own way, experienced all of that. But you know what, NCAA? They failed yet again. Let's legitimately look at everything that's going on with the players, not the realignment and all the big money that all these big executives are making. The deep state, as you know, both presidential candidates like to call it. We're not political, but that's what they call it, the deep state. All these people making money. Let's regulate young kids historically that don't come from very good situations. Meanwhile, Jim Schlossnagle can get $35 million guaranteed, and nobody says a word. Now, they call him sleazy. They call him shitty. And both of those things, I feel like he is. But the bottom line for me is that none of this is making sense anymore. And a lot of you have been there well before I have. Decades, years, months, whatever it was that you thought that things had been changing. And maybe not decades. Maybe it is decades for some of you. I just find it very hard to believe that our priorities in these sports, in college, our priorities aren't in the wrong place. Why? It doesn't register. Let me say it like this, too. It just doesn't register in my brain. It doesn't register in my brain that we can continue to look at NIL in the portal, say this is killing college football, which to some degree I don't disagree with you. And then Schlossnagle pulled what he pulled, and his entire roster, and it's not going to be his entire roster, but the big portion of that roster is going to be gone. And it's so late in the process to rebuild. Matt McMahon's starting to say, hey, this is sounding very familiar to me. I don't know if it doesn't register. Maybe it does register in your brain. Maybe it does. Maybe I'm just crazy. But the big news of today, and what will continue to be very big news, what I think within look, I'll just be very conservative here. The news that more than likely will last over the next 2 weeks. Today was a big day for college baseball, not like yesterday wasn't. Schlossnagle goes out there today and apologizes to the reporter. What a loser, man. Just a flat-out loser. This guy is, at least to me. But A&M did have some very big players hit the portal today. I'm going to talk about one of them. This is in no specific order, just the way that I wrote them down on our forum. You need to get over there. But Texas A&M, infielder, outfielder, and a guy that played third base his freshman year, Caden Kent, has entered the transfer portal. What's interesting about this, the person that broke this news, and On3 never does this, is the person who broke it. You obviously know, if you're a college baseball fan by now, who Caden Kent is, because like what I think that now Kim Mulkey faced, the head coach of women's basketball, when her son, if you don't ever remember, Kramer Robertson faced. I don't know if Caden Kent, who had a really, really good postseason, might not make his way and take a visit and look at Baton Rouge. Would not shock me in the slightest. I think you need the kid. I think if a kid like that, who you just saw on the big stage, can turn it on and really be a good SEC hitter and good fielder, at a place like this, I think it sells. One thing that I want to make very clear here, I think Caden Kent is very interesting, to me, especially to me. Not only did he have a big postseason and Omaha, I don't think NIL could sway some things here. I'm not saying that NIL never does. I just would not be surprised if that it's just not a big thing for the Kent family. The benefit of Jeff Kent is that the kid is not going to worry about money. Just want to let you know, like, his dad, Jeff, in his baseball playing days was worth and made around, what was it, $250 million over the years that he played. And I think he's got a very big-time business in the Austin area. And look, there is a chance that the kid might go to UT. Didn't out of high school, though, which is very interesting. He is someone that I think that could give you versatility. Could he play second? Could he play in the outfield if you needed him to for whatever reason? Yes. Could he play at third? Also, yes. I know, though, that might not be the third baseman that you want to talk about, but I just want to make it very well known. I think that Jay Johnson would not mind a guy like Caden Kent. Another thing, he wasn't the only one that entered. Another big guy that entered into the portal, which is a position of need that you have, that being third baseman Gavin Grahovac, who last year hit .298 with 23 home runs and 66 RBIs. Guys, he does fill a need for you. Even though I feel a little bit more confident about Caden Kent than I would Gavin Grahovac, what I would say here is I am just not 100% sold that Gavin would not follow that coaching staff. What I do think, meaning his old coaching staff, okay, to Texas. What I do think is very interesting here, and something that I just quite simply do not know. Do any of those guys that entered the portal today, Gavin Grahovac included, are they pissed off at Jim Schlossnagle for doing what he did? Can you trust a guy like that? How do they like him? Do they not like him? Those are things that I just have no knowledge to at the current moment. Zero knowledge at that current moment that any of those guys are dealing with. This is somebody who has a lot of baseball info. Let me make sure that nothing is broken here. But I fully believe that Gavin is the most interesting case in all of this to me. It's the most interesting case in the fact that I think that he could be persuaded either way. Either way. Do I think that Jay Johnson picks up the phone and calls him? You're god dog right I am. You're god dog right I think he does. Do I think that there are connections that benefit Jay Johnson to getting to the Grahovac and to getting to Gavin Grahovac and his family? Also, yes. It is very easy to go watch Stephen Milam play, who is playing for USA Baseball, which Gavin Grahovac will be doing as well. Very easy. So, that one's interesting to me. What I don't think is... What I do have a fear here is that the opposite thing happens, right? Like if Grahovac is going to go on and play for Team USA, I mean, I just don't know what's going to happen because does he not take visits? And if he doesn't visit LSU, what happens? I just don't know any of those answers. I haven't heard much on him yet either. And what should lead me to the biggest point here is that this is very early in the process for all of these kids, in my opinion. All of these kids are a very early process. If things stop dropping very quickly, I think it will be very telling that the players knew that Schloss was out the door, which a lot of them have agents. Maybe the agents knew that he was going to be out the door. I don't know. What I do know is that they have very talented. Those two kids, Grahovac and Kent, are two very talented players, which Kent got beat out by Grahovac, if we're just being real, at third. And I don't know if either one of them would not want to play third. And you might have to, if you're Jay, only be able to get one of them. And I'm going to be real with you. I think if it came down to it, he would go with Jeff Kent's kid in Caden Kent. It remains to be seen. I know that that's not the one that you were hoping to talk about, but hold on, we're going to get to Chase Laviolette. Hayden Schott is very interesting to me. Now, you might remember Hayden Schott during the LSU series. The crew that was the broadcast crew was talking to him. They interviewed him. Really funny interview, man. To be all honest with you, a kid that was at the Ivy League, goes to Texas A&M, has a really big year. Now all this shit happens, and he's in the portal again. I think if Hayden Schott were born in or were alive and in his teenage to 20s during the 60s when the hippie stuff was going on, I feel like that Hayden Schott would have thrived in the 60s and 70s with hippie love. I just get that kind of vibe from him. He tweets out today, hire Nolan Cain or easily the hitting coach. I think what team and the reason that Hayden Schott is so interesting to me is that we've seen so many experienced guys in baseball, more than any other sport, have such a dramatic effect to a team. You saw it a year ago. Guys, look at all the veterans dudes that you had on that team. Alex Milazzo was a fourth-year guy. Gavin Dugas, Kay Beloso, Braden Jobert. Guys, you're talking about so many seniors that were on that team, experienced dudes, fifth-year guys. This being Hayden Schott, having another year, we see all across Omaha those experienced dudes deliver for you, and you just saw Schott doing in the SEC. He is an outfielder. I don't know if you need one. Remember me saying that in just a moment. It's very interesting to me. I do think Jay would take him. But does he get him? And is it a priority for him when he does? We'll see. What I would tell you here, too, is as we get to Chase Laviolette in just a minute, let me pull up this guy, too, because I lost my notes. Because I want to be able to read off his stats here, too. So hold on. God dog it. There was one guy that I did leave off my list that hit A&M today that we have not talked about. I do think that LSU does need left-handed pitching. That will be interesting to see what happens there. Golly, where is he? No, that's not him either. Hold on. Bear with me. Their catcher hit the portal, and I am missing it. I don't have him in my notes. Their catcher is very interesting to me, too, because you need somebody that is solid that can be behind the plate. Now, what I would tell you is I have not heard anything on their catcher, like literally zero. Wouldn't surprise me, though. All right, there it is. Yep, here it is. Max Kaufer is the catcher that entered the transfer portal. I could have just stopped there because I have not heard really anything. Do I think that you need a catcher, too, that can play? Yeah, I do. All right. Here is probably the one that everybody is waiting on, and that's Chase Laviolette. I could make the argument that Chase Laviolette and all the things that were out there today about him. There were a lot of reports that he was going to LSU. At this exact moment, and I mean this exact moment, I have not heard him by anybody on that staff that says that he's coming there. But hold on. I haven't heard from anybody on that staff that has said that he's not coming. What I would tell you is when there's that much out there about him going to one school in less than 12 hours, I'm always very skittish. Let me tell you why. I think that in a situation like this, I'm always skeptical by kids and agents that will leak stuff out about a player like that going somewhere that other schools that would want Chase Laviolette, which is everybody in the country, that does not raise the price tag. Chase Laviolette was also committed to LSU under Paul Manerick. That would have been wild if you would have had Dylan Cruz and Chase Laviolette. Nolan got a good one there. Paul leaves, he retires. Nolan Cain goes to A&M. You know the story. He goes to A&M with him. I don't know if LSU is not being utilized as a team that is not being just orchestrated to raise the price up. Now, do I think that Jay Johnson, for an example, would 1,000% take and go after Chase Laviolette, even though everything that you have in the transfer or gotten from the transfer portal and everything that you've gotten coming back in the two freshmen that can be on the corners? Yes, you take a dude that hit 29 bombs a year ago. Sorry. And a guy that big with that speed that can play center field, the kid is absolutely, positively, 1,000% a stud. You take him no matter what, no matter the circumstances. I am not saying LSU is going to get him. I'm not saying that they're not going to get him. Only thing that I can do is relay to you what I have heard. And what I have heard is that nobody is sure. And I think the kid is going to make absolutely unreal and ridiculous money. I remember when Braden Montgomery and LSU, this same thing last year happened to LSU under Braden Montgomery. Now, there has been a lot of baseball people that have been out there saying LSU seems to be to take the lead for Chase. I'm very skittish of it at the current moment. That is all opinion. Here's what I know to be true. Do you take the kid? 1,000%. 1,000,000,000%. Does he not follow Schloss to Texas? I don't know. Does he follow Nolan Cain? I don't know. But here's what I think is going to legitimately at the end of the day happen. I think because you already have this maneuvering going on, oh, it's LSU for Chase Laviolette. Let's run down the last 24 hours for this young man. His coach is going to Texas. He wasn't notified, at least allegedly, from what we understand from him posting on social media. He was not advised that this was happening. He sends out a tweet saying how much he absolutely adores and loves Texas A&M. Doesn't say he's staying, doesn't say he's leaving, but phrases it in a way that he would stay at A&M for all the love that he has for that place. This morning, early morning, he hits the portal. And all of a sudden, he knows where he's going. It does not track, man. It doesn't track in recruiting. Because what I think is going to happen to that kid and to his agent, everybody and their mama, LSU, South Carolina, Tennessee, LSU, Texas A&M is going to try to keep the kid. Florida. Dude, there are going to be so many teams. What is does Florida State get in the mix? By the way, who is A&M going to hire? Because I'm very well confident, like I told you last night, Jay Johnson is not going anywhere. I wouldn't be surprised if Jay Johnson is going to get a little bit more money. Even though he just signed a contract extension, I think things were discussed in principle. That's what a little birdie told me. I just do not see a scenario where this doesn't become a bidding war. Everybody says he hates Jim Schlossnagle. We're going to find out. We're going to find out how much he hates him. Let me tell you something else that I've thought about today, too. Now, we have talked a lot about how bad all this is for A&M, how bad this is, that their roster is going to be purged. What we haven't talked about is how good this is for Texas. Guys, Texas comes into the league next week. They come into the SEC officially next week. And there, quite honestly, is no bigger nut drop. Like just putting your nuts on the table, coming into the best conference in the country by doing what they just did. There isn't one. The only other way that this would be a bigger nut drop is if they did something like this in football. They didn't do this in football. It was a nut dropper. Here's something that I want to lay out to you, and a lot of you will call me conspiratorial. I have a very hard time believing a lot of things that is going on in this. One, that the players that have agents didn't have some idea that this wasn't a possibility. Guys, you and I talked about it 3 weeks ago. You mean to tell me that the conversation 3 weeks ago that you and I had about would Jay Johnson leave for Texas, there's a lot of rumors out there that they're firing David Pierce. You mean to tell me that nobody at Texas A&M heard those same whispers? Especially up at top, meaning like Trev Alberts. Do you mean that big-time players like Chase Laviolette, who I'm assuming does have an agent, and if he didn't, he has one by now, it's very hard for me to believe that those players didn't have some idea. Because if me and you were talking about it on the show 3 weeks ago, what in the outright Rudy Poo, you don't think the kids that are connected to that did not know? Now you're going to say, no, Blake, there's no way. Are you sure? Because, I mean, listen, for something like that at Texas to get to a place like here where we have to address it, in my humble experience or opinion, my expertise tells me that whenever we go through something like this, that Texas, the school that is thinking about firing their coach, along with Texas A&M, has to know about it. I'm not 1,000% sure that Jim Schlossnagle didn't conversate with some of these players and told them what was up. I have a hard time believing it. You can say I'm crazy. We'll see if they go to him and they go to Austin with him. I get all that. I could be completely wrong on that. I just still have a very hard time to believe that it happened. Here's a big reason, too, why I don't believe that they didn't know. Guys, I have known at LSU as an example. Now, every place is different. A&M is completely different than LSU. But I have a very hard time believing that a coach, boom, that literally accepted a job yesterday, players, and it was reported late in the day, like late evening in the day. It's not like it was reported in the morning so players could go and get into the portal and file portal paperwork and all that kind of stuff, get their transcripts. Guys, by the way, it's the summer. It's their summer. Those players officially hit the portal very quickly, didn't they? It does not happen like that. At least it doesn't happen with players getting into the portal like that here. And you know what? I called some buddies of mine. Called a buddy of mine at Georgia today. Called a buddy of mine at Florida today. I was like, called a buddy of mine at Alabama today. And I was like, random question. I'm going to ask you one question. Tell me what you think, and I'm hanging up. I asked all of them, when you start getting word that a player is about to hit the portal or has hit the portal, that it's a couple of days before it officially goes through? Oh, yeah, all the time. Every one of them said it. I think that there was shit going on behind the scenes that nobody wants to talk about. None sleazier than Jim Schlossnagle. Here's the ultimate thing. I think that you're going to get one of these kids. I think you're going to get one of them. I don't know if you get any more than that, though. I do think that you could get two. I will admit you could get two. And you know what's crazy about all of this? Now you have Jay Johnson in the portal attacking something. It's a lot of the same thing of what we saw from football doing, attacking the portal when they had needs. I'm not going to say that Chase Laviolette is not like that he's a need, but man, 29 home runs. Yeah, anybody needs him. I just wouldn't be shocked. I don't have confidence in any other ones at this exact moment than Caden Kemp. All right. And that could even change. We'll get to a couple of comments here very quickly, and then we will get to the break, and then we'll talk some football here as well. Stephen Young says, ask Blake, do you want any of the Texas players? I haven't studied them enough. I just, no. Maybe the kid that was a freshman, but I don't know. Stephen Perilou says, I just want to see Jay tweet the tiger emoji. I do too. I feel like every time that Jay Johnson tweets out the tiger emoji, that it's like when smoke is coming out of the Vatican when they have found a new pope. The entire state of Louisiana goes and looks at the smoke that we found a new pope. Jay Johnson, the Portal King, legitimately has gone back out there and got a really good player. I mean, it has the same significance. It is the same significance for the people in Louisiana. Maybe not those people across the basin, but they're not that great at baseball. All right. John Sibley Butler says Schloss went to Texas because he and the Texas AD are good friends. Very true. And I do believe I do believe that is a factor. I don't believe it's a whole factor. I think that they're going to put a lot of money in backing Schlossnagle to bring a winner. Ryan says that the shortstop at Texas, I haven't seen him. I know the one at A&M hit the portal, Camarillo. I don't think you would that Jay would take him over Braswell though, if I'm being honest. All right, let's get to a couple of things. Got some football stuff we need to talk about. Let's get to a quick break. We're back next. Stay with us. Guys, you might know my good friend Carol Foss and all the great service that he provides over at State Farm. He is your good neighbor after all. But did you know State Farm has surprisingly great rates as well? Along with the great neighbor service, State Farm agent Carol Foss has surprisingly great rates for everyone inside the state of Louisiana. So call him today at 985-395-4300, 985-395-4300 for all of those surprisingly great rates on auto, home, and life insurance needs. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there, and individual premiums will vary by customer. All applicants subject to the State Farm underwriting requirements. Guys, I want to talk to you about our good friends over the Drake Williams Law Firm and Drake Title Company. Are you facing tough times due to an injury from a car accident, navigating the complexities of divorce, or purchasing a new home? At the Drake Williams Law Firm and Drake Title Company, they understand the challenges you're going through, and they are here to help. The lawyer team of Ernie Drake III, Ryan J. Williams, and Summer Vignair, along with Morgan Daniels, have the experience and proven track record to give you that peace of mind. Give them a call today at 985-386-7600. That's 985-386-7600 to schedule a free consultation at their brand new office located in historic downtown Ponchatoula. They're also doing a special, the AYS special. If you're refinancing or closing on a home in Southeast Louisiana, request the Drake Title Company to handle your closing. If you mention Blake Ruffino and AYS, you're going to receive a $400 discount on title fees. Again, give them a call at 985-386-7600. Let them know that Blake Ruffino sent you on by.
Louisiana is unique. The food, the festivals, even the bugs. No, not mud bugs. Unwanted bugs like these. The ones you don't want crawling in your home or business. Trust the Shield from J&J Exterminating. We've been protecting Louisiana homes for over 50 years, earning the trust of our clients because we deliver what we promise. Protect your home from pests. Get the Shield from J&J Exterminating.
J&J Exterminating. Yeah.
Very quickly, I want to address something here that I said earlier today on social media because I got to clarify on some things because for whatever reason, some people didn't fully understand what I was talking about. I said this on Twitter and I want to justify it. I said Texas, who will officially be in the conference next week, did something that Texas A&M couldn't do in a decade. That is to get the entire SEC to rally behind them. And I meant rally behind them because I felt like everybody knew that it was a foregone conclusion that everybody in the SEC had been talking about how messed up it was what Schlossnagle has done to Texas A&M. I thought that was pretty clear. Maybe I'm wrong, but it took 12 years for the SEC as a collective to all get behind Texas A&M for one cause and one reason. It's because they vastly got screwed over. I am proud of the SEC fans, the true SEC fans that rally behind A&M, even though I think that they're a bitter rival now, at least to me. I do tell you, however, there are parts of me that kind of likes that all this happened. It's just another opponent that you do not have to worry about being good in the SEC. Did they deserve it? Here's what I fully believe. I don't think anybody deserves it. I don't think that any team deserves that. But that is what I meant. That way, when everybody keeps coming on at me at social media or on social media, thought it was funny that Texas, who is going to be in the league next week, was the one that got everybody to rally around them. Something that's very interesting. Now, last night we talked about safeties. Tonight, I want to talk about something that I saw that was somewhat viral, and it comes out every single year that it does. But 247 Sports came out with their blue chip ratio, which normally I vastly agree with, that leads to ultimate success. But I have a theory. And I have somewhat of an ask. Not really an ask, but just to say, LSU is in the top 8 in blue chip ratio for this upcoming season. If you don't know what blue chip ratio is, it's the most blue chip recruits that one team has. You know, like Ohio State has 90% blue chip recruits. LSU has 70%. Ironically, Alabama is number 2 with 88%, even though they had a big time portal departure there. But LSU's in the top 8. You know, it's ironic. I went and looked at this last year. Now, this could change. Maybe I'm looking at the wrong thing because, you know, look, sometimes, you know, different people have blue chip ratios of what they expect coming back. LSU was number 4 in blue chip ratio last year. And the season didn't go the way that you wanted it to. And I look at LSU this year and at the position groups that they have, which made me question the talent that, if we just look at it as a whole from recruiting services and the way that they rank and look at recruits in high school, you're in the top 8. Problem is, you face 3 teams that have a better blue chip ratio than you do. So on an industry paper, you face Oklahoma that has a better blue chip ratio than you. You face A&M that has a better blue chip ratio than you. Oh, and by the way, you face Alabama that's got one better than you. The interesting part here is A&M has been somebody that we've looked at over the years when we look at blue chip ratio and say, look, man, you got to add context to it because Jimbo Fisher was there. They got a lot of talent, but they suck. And they lose a lot. Oklahoma, to some extent, they do get some really good talent in there, but there have been times where they have not lived up to the expectations in the last couple of years that they think that they're at. And then obviously you know, what I want to make sure about all this is that I do have a theory, but the theory when it comes to blue chip ratio, I don't know how much it really matters because Michigan wasn't on that list last year in the top 10. They certainly weren't in the top 8. Certainly weren't in the top 8. But I can literally see Ohio State being one of the best teams in the country. And so I flip it on its head and say, well, you know what, man? It's not always wrong. Maybe you need to add context. Let's get to the bigger point here of what I want to mention. What the blue chip ratio coming out made me think of was just how much talent do you actually have and maybe some position groups that are lacking. We know them. We've talked about 2 of them, actually 3 of them, if we want to be completely concise. But, man, it's something to be said that you're still considered from a talent aspect, from just a recruiting service, that, guys, you should be a top 8 program in the country based off the way that you recruit. And if you're not that, then what has happened? Have there been guys that have been misses? Now, you know, Sage Ryan was a 5-star that has not panned out, not to what 5 stars are expected to be. John Emery, ironically enough, is a part of that blue chip list. Will Campbell, technically, from a percentage standpoint, yeah, I could see that. And Emory Jones, you got to add context to it. I do think, because so many of us and so many people that cover this team, to some extent myself included, shit on this team from a talent aspect. The truth is, man, you do actually have a lot of talent that's scattered across. It just depends on, can you develop that talent and get it where it needs to be? You know, we talked about safeties last night. Look, man, Major Burns was your leading tackler last year. Horrible in coverage, yes. But, you know, do you look at him and ask, how bad was scheme? I don't think the kid can cover. What I do know, did he miss some tackles in the open field against a receiver? Yes. Was he very efficient around the line of scrimmage? Also, yes. From a talent aspect, look, I get on recruiting services all the time about how they miss, and they do miss a lot. And I do think that there's give and take to, and context to things about recruiting. Man, they miss a lot too. They do miss a lot. I mean, Malik Neighbors, I mean, they boosted him up last time when he, in his recruiting process, because he signed with LSU. The kid was a 3-star the entire way until he signed with LSU. Don't change him at the last minute because you look like a dummy. I do agree with him, though, that I can see the very big marker of where that you have talent. It can be hard to see sometimes because there are a lot of units like last year that struggled. Sean Womack's on this team. DJ Chester's on this team. Will Campbell, Emory Jones, Harold Perkins. I mean, from a blue chip ratio, like we said, Sage Ryan and John Emery. It's just what do you do with it that matters the most. All right. Let's get out of here. Let me make sure we have no super chats. We do not. Let me make sure that we don't have any questions. Kevin says, did Slosh not get along with the Aggie AD? Well, I don't know if it's that he didn't get along with him. I think it's that there's a new one. And there's always going to be tough things when there's a new AD. And he didn't come there with a new when that AD was in there. Trev Alberts. Cole Adams says, what was Michigan's blue chip ratio percentage last year? Cole, I didn't write it down. All I put was it was not in the top 10. I would be giving you a fake statistic. I don't know their percentage. Lance Aber says, more like karma for the Aggies. Yeah, but karma for what? What did they do? I mean, what did they do? I don't like them, but what did they do? Schlossnagle told A&M bend over and spell run. Sounds like from what we see from A&M fans, he's not the only, he's not the one telling them that. I mean, he uses some of that verbiage. That's why he left TCU. That's what I hear, at least what I see, I should say. P. Scott with a $4.99 super chat says, Gabe, I would venture to say Gabe Rutherford and Dom McKinley need to be huge freshman year ? Your thoughts? So thank you, P. Scott. Do I think that they need to be huge for you? Let's talk about that. Let's break that down very quickly. Yes, they do, because they have to be big based off of the necessity of you being bad at those positions. It's what's the likelihood? I mean, very two talented guys, man. And could it happen? Is it impossible that they have big year ones? No, not at all. But the Emory Jones, Will Campbell scenario doesn't play out like that very often. It especially on the line of scrimmage. There's just not a lot of freshmen that can go into a freshman year game one type of scenario and give you the reps that they need to give you. Now, the season is more than just game one. You progress and all that stuff too. I get all of that. I think that Bo Davis is going, like, one thing we can't knock Bo Davis on is him being a good developer. You can't do that to him. And if he doesn't develop here and guys don't develop here, it might not be him, Bo Davis. It might be you. Right? Like it's probably you that's the problem. So do they need to be big? Yes. Am I like gung ho? Am I like, oh man, they're going to do this? No. No, I'm not. I think it's way too much to always ask from a freshman. And like I told you with Will Campbell, I thought that he would struggle coming out of the gate a little bit more than he did. He proved me wrong. Does not mean that he did not have his freshman mistakes. He did have some, not a lot. Don McKinley's got to be the one that steps up the most, without question. Dylan Smith with a $199 super chat says, do you think Jay regrets early portal now of A&M? No. No, because he can no. Not a chance. People know. People know. And look, it's very difficult for me to believe that Jay didn't know. I mean, guys, again, Jay was asked that question 3 weeks ago about Texas. It's not like he didn't know what was happening. Coaches know things, man. And I think Jay made his decision based off of it. Thank you, P. Scott and Dylan Smith, for the super chat. We'll see y'all tomorrow, man. Y'all have a good one. Peace.